I recently heard the claim that Brigham Young had Latter-day Saint settlers add shards of glass to sacks of flour, which were then given to Native Americans. Is it true? Let's talk about it. So I first heard this claim from someone on Instagram. I asked what their sources were, and they weren't particularly helpful. So I searched through these 3 biographies of Brigham Young and these 3 books about the history of Native Americans in Utah. None of them mention anything about glass-tainted flour. So where does this claim actually come from? Well, I did find that there was no shortage of critics of the church talking about this claim online, and they were all pointing back to the same ultimate source, TimpanogosTribe.com. Background info. According to the Department of the Interior, there are 574 federally recognized American Indian tribes and entities. Timpanogos Tribe is not one of them. I'll leave some links in the description if you want to learn more about that. There's been some drama, including legal issues between them and the federally recognized Ute Indian tribe, but I digress. On the Timpanogos Tribe website, there is a page that includes the 1-paragraph-long biography of one Isla Chivers, who only just recently passed away. We read,
Isla shared the story of her family getting a sack of flour from the Mormons. When old James Reed saw the flour, he dumped some of it on the table and brushed his glove-covered hand across it, exposing the broken glass fragments hidden inside. She always warned against taking food from Mormons because of this.
Please note, Isla didn't write this. This is someone else's recollection of what Isla apparently said. You can take that for what it's worth. Chief Executive of Timpanogos Tribe, Mary Mayer, expanded on this claim on the homepage of the website. She wrote that Latter-day Saint settlers brought confusion as they spoke of their God and peace while sharing sacks of flour laced with broken glass. Brigham Young said, "You can get rid of more Indians with a sack of flour than a keg of powder, destroying us with what appeared to be acts of kindness." Now, this critic of the church apparently contacted Mary in the past about this claim. Mary apparently said the claim was true and offered further documentation. The creator said she was going to make a follow-up video. It doesn't look like she's done that, so I reached out to Mary, who was kind enough to chat with me on the phone for a half hour. She was not able to give me any other source for this story other than Isla, who apparently shared the story with Mary about 15 years ago. She also supplemented the story again with that quote attributed to Brigham Young. Isla's bio doesn't mention Brigham Young at all, so it's unclear to me whether Isla included Brigham Young in her original telling, or if that was a conclusion that Mary came to independently. When I asked where Isla had heard this general story from, Mary said that Isla had experienced it firsthand. The problem is that Isla was born in 1937, long after the death of Brigham Young and the problems between the Saints and the natives. So either Latter-day Saints were for some reason sharing glass-tainted flour in the mid-20th century, or more likely, Isla heard this story from someone else who may have heard it from someone else, etc. Maybe Isla's grandfather or great-grandfather, who were both named James Reed, really did find some glass in a sack of flour. But if Latter-day Saints under Brigham Young were systematically trying to kill Native Americans with glass-tainted flour, why is there only one single decades-late non-primary account of it? With all due respect to Isla, this sounds like family folklore. I asked historian and author Sandra Jones if she'd ever heard this claim before. She replied, "Bottom line, no. I've never seen anything even close to this glass in the flour story. If it ever happened, it was done by a rogue settler doing something on his own. It was never a Brigham Young policy." But what about that Brigham Young quote about killing Indians with sacks of flour? That quote comes from the October 20th, 1866 issue of the Denver Rocky Mountain News. The article is not about Brigham Young or anyone else hiding glass in flour. Flour is used in this article as a symbol representative of colonization and contact with white settlers. The article itself explains, rather insensitively, why flour is considered deadly, and it has nothing to do with glass. It says, "Make a treaty with them, Native Americans, and pay them as the government does in salt, bacon, sugar, and flour, and the Indian becomes lazy and a beggar. While the change of food brings with it diseases which were to the Indian unknown before, and which, with the nameless diseases that he gets from contact with the whites, soon finish off his mortal career." Another symbol of colonization is used towards the end of the same article. It is a well-settled fact that a locomotive will kill more Indians in a given space of time than even flour or Bibles. They're not talking about natives being literally killed by a train or flour or Bibles. These are just symbols of colonization, and the effects of trying to civilize the natives. If people want to believe this is all really a veiled reference to a deadly serious atrocity, I can't stop them. But the fact is that nobody in Brigham Young's day was interpreting this that way. The only actual quote I've been able to find from Brigham Young that talks about killing Native Americans with flour comes from 1871. He doesn't say anything about glass, and not surprisingly, he talks about flour in the same way as that 1866 article.
I will say to our government, if they could hear me, you need never fight the Indians. But if you want to get rid of them, try to civilize them. Did we kill them? No, we fed them. They would say, we want just as fine flour as you have. To Walker the chief, I said, it will just as sure kill as the world, if you live as we live. Said he, I want as good as Brigham. I want to eat as he does. Said I, eat then, but it will kill you. I told the same to Arapeen, Walker's brother, but they must eat and drink as the whites did. And I do not suppose that 1 in 100 of those bands are alive.
Now, I'm certainly not saying that Brigham Young never made mistakes or that he was beyond reproach. Like most everyone else in those days, to an extent, he certainly was prejudiced against Native Americans. That said, no matter how you feel about Brigham Young, we shouldn't lay atrocities at his feet or anyone's feet when the evidence just isn't there. If you're curious about how the settlers actually treated Native Americans in Utah, go watch this video and have a great day.